This is Aaron Golub, host of the Blind Ambition podcast. We'll be bringing you world-class leaders, entrepreneurs, and athletes, people who have overcome obstacles and used their ambition to create enormous success in their lives. If you enjoy this podcast, if you get anything out of it, the only thing I'll ever ask is that you subscribe, rate, and review. Hope you enjoy. Hello, I'm your host, Aaron Golub, again this week, and I want to welcome in Thomas Kim. Thank you, Thomas, so much for joining me.
Aaron, thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate you taking your time. You have a really unique story, both as an entrepreneur, but also as, the challenges and obstacles that you've gone through. Why don't you give a brief background on, yourself and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, so I'm a Chicago native, born and raised, son to Korean immigrants, and just had a front row seat at a hard hard work ethic and kind of a scrappy approach to life. My mom worked 3 jobs to raise 3 kids. She did that when she was alone. My dad left when I was 7, and I just had a ton of older men step into my life to fill that void, raise me, and teach me some great things along the way. When I began a career working, I knew that just because of all I'd received, I wanted to work. I was ambitious, but I also just loved mentorship and being able to give that back. And so fast forwarding a little bit, now I build and operate car washes. Our company's name is Everclean, and we are reimagining the car wash experience for the modern consumer. And then on the social front, we're enriching lives through opportunity and holistic mentorship. So that's just the highlights of what we're up to.
Yes. Well, let's dive into kind of your childhood to start. What was it like growing up when your father was gone? How did that shape you? And, what do you think you learned from that experience?
I grew up in the north side of Chicago in a suburb called Skokie. And in the 80s, it was an extremely diverse group of people. And I'm not just talking ethnically, I'm also talking socioeconomically. And most of us were immigrant kids, which also meant that most of us were latchkey kids. We had a ton of freedom. Part of it was the times, part of it was our family environment. But I mean, 8 or 9 a.m. in the summers, we're out and we're playground rats. We're there for 12 hours. And largely what it allowed us to do was just to explore, to play, to experiment, to build things, to break things. And it ended up developing a lot of resourceful guys. From my group of friends, quite a few of us are entrepreneurs. And so that was sort of the neighborhood experience. My unique part of that was just my dad not being around. At home, it meant that we were having to do things that maybe in a home where both parents are around, you don't have to do. So we started doing our own laundry when we were 9. I cooked my first dinner that same year when I was 9. We would get dropped off at the grocery store. My mom would study in the car because she went back to school. And so at 10 years old, barely able to look over the shopping cart handle, we were grocery shopping and paying for the food. So we took on responsibility really early, and it also taught us not to be afraid, sometimes just because we had to do things. And I remember, for example, the first light bulb I ever changed in the house. I also remember one of those light bulbs exploding on me and realizing with these incandescent bulbs, I should probably turn off the lights when I'm changing them. So it was a lot of experimenting and just learning by doing.
How do you think that experience, growing up without your father and, taking on such responsibility as a young child shaped you for the future? What do you think the impact of it was down the line when you became an entrepreneur?
I think not being afraid and overwhelmed with unfamiliarity. I think that was that's something that's very hard to train somebody, and it's also hard to decide you're going to choose that. A lot of times it's forced upon you. You don't have the choice, and it's just what you have to go through. And so I think one of the muscles, and it's not just me, my older brother, my younger sister, I think all three of us have, is we're extremely comfortable in unfamiliar settings where we don't know exactly what to do, but we've just been there literally 1,000 times, and we know we're going to be able to ask the right questions. We're going to try it. We're not afraid to fail, and we're going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. At what point in your life did you say, really, I want to be an entrepreneur? And then from that, what made you settle, or not settle, that's a bad word, but what made you choose the car wash industry? Because there's so many, it's just a very unique area. I don't think I'd ever go ahead and say, I want to start a car wash. Like what made you think of that?
Yeah. I was not the kid who grew up, set up a lemonade stand and made enough money to pay his way through college. That's not my story. Growing up, I wasn't motivated by money, but what I was always doing was finding something cool to do and work on, and then rally people around that. So whether that's turning my basement into the cockpit of a spaceship and getting all my friends to come in and pretend and play with me and blow baby powder and smoke screen everywhere, destroying the whole basement, like whether it was that or creating a bike gang of guys and then setting up ramps out of the old boxes and cardboards in the back of the strip mall. Like it was always that. It was working on a cool project and gathering people. I really didn't have a moment where I decided I want to be an entrepreneur. I just ended up finding myself in that place. My story was actually is a corporate guy. I started off in engineering, and one day, again, story of mentorship in my life, the president of the company says, "Hey, Tom, again, I'm a design engineer." He says, "I think I have something I'd like to show you." And he sent me the valuation model for the company as it was going through a private equity transaction. And as the president of the company reaching out to a design engineer saying, "Hey, I think you'd be interested in this." I looked at this valuation model and I just blew my mind. The idea that you can combine capital, value add management, and create this really powerful thing for making money and building companies. I think that was the first moment where a light bulb went on and I thought, ooh, there's a different way than just having a job, which there's nothing wrong with. But for me, it was the first time I really considered a different way. Fast forwarding to 2015, I had been in real estate development. I had done some technology investing, and both of those markets felt a little overheated for me. And I was thinking, what do I do next? I knew that what I wanted was something that was more recession resistant. And I didn't love where I saw the real estate market, tech market, public markets. And so I started looking at just unsexy, established, mature industries that needed some modernizing. Looked at some trailer parks, looked at factories, getting back into manufacturing, and then I saw a car wash deal. And I laughed about it, didn't take it seriously because I just watched Breaking Bad. And, that's not exactly the kind of thing you grow up dreaming that you'll do as a grown-up. And but when I looked at the industry, my goodness, it's a massive space. And the reason why so many people laugh at it is exactly why I want to be in it. There's so much room for transforming that experience and actually creating something memorable and that serves customers well.
Yeah.
And so I bought the first location and started to experiment.
And then, what do you think really sets you apart from other car washes? With your business model and everything that you have going on, why would someone say, I'm going to go to your location?
Believe it or not, there are most car washes out there are actually not doing a great job um, providing a good wash. So bare minimum, you have to do that. Car washes are actually, they're more like a factory inside. And it's not just mechanical, it's chemistry lab with multiple pH levels of chemicals and water hardness, softness levels. So that's just bare minimum. We make sure that our equipment's always cleaning and doing a good job. But really our main goal that I don't see many people shoot for, even if they can crank out a good car, we are shooting for your car always clean. So how do we solve for us? It's not just how do we clean a car well and get people's attention. I mean, that's an old school way of thinking. For us, it's customers have a car that they bought because they had this affinity to it, and it was smiling and shining at them in the showroom, and they decided, of all the cars, you're the one for me. But they don't fully enjoy it because it's not clean. That's the problem we want to solve. We want to maximize our customers' happiness and enjoyment of this really expensive purchase by keeping it always clean. And the way we do that is through a membership model. Most of our customers are subscribers. They have a tag on their front windshield. It works just like Easy Pass. You pull up, the reader picks up that you're a customer. Welcome back, Aaron. Gate goes up, you're in and out within 3 minutes. So providing that whole packaged experience so that you have a frictionless way to come in and out and wash your car well without having to pay for that every time. When you sign up with us, what you're really signing up for is to feel good about your car all the time.
That's awesome. What about also, you were talking to me before we got online, this spray that you guys have developed and have, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So a mentor asked me when COVID hit, what can you do in your company to serve your community and your customers? And so we have an electrostatic sprayer that we've rolled out across all of our locations. It has a chemical that when you spray a car, it targets coronavirus, and within 60 seconds of contact, it'll kill coronavirus and provide a safe car for you that maybe you were sick and you had a cold, maybe you had COVID and you want to bring your kids and start having them ride in the car again. Well, this is that answer, and we don't charge for it. It's just us doing what we can to help serve our customers.
So is this, a widely used thing? Do other car washes have this, or is this unique to you?
So this was actually the story of where I learned about this was our daughter was in the hospital, 9 months, 13 surgeries, and unfortunately over the summer she didn't make it, and she passed away. And when she was in the hospital, every time she went into surgery, the hospital protocol was to sterilize the room. And so these technologies are very common in surgical rooms, hospital rooms, nursing homes, and that's where I'd learned about it. Yeah. So there I just kind of tucked it in the back of my mind because it was new and interesting to me. I think it's being used now on airplanes. That's how they're turning aircrafts over between flights.
Yeah, and not to interrupt you, but I was going to say, how come this isn't more common practice? I've never heard of it. Why isn't it more, on airplanes, in gyms, in offices, even in people's homes? Like why don't, I have one of these? Well, why isn't this a more widespread thing if it really works, I guess is my question there.
Part of it is cost. Historically, it's
Yeah.
been more of a commercial or industrial type of equipment. So I would say even most cleaning and janitorial companies wouldn't have used them pre-COVID. I think now it's more common.
Yep.
And so you're starting to see it. I think it'll still be unusual for residents to have it, just because of cost, and the chemical is not a consumer over the counter type of chemical that you use. So you have to apply it well and know how to handle that.
Yeah. I know you touched on it a little there. I want to dive into the story behind your daughter and everything that happened there, because that's a tough situation, and I couldn't imagine going through that. But talk a little bit about your experience, maybe what happened, and how it really affected and eventually allowed your relationship with your wife to grow. How you were able to come out of that on the other side, and really still have a positive attitude. Of course, you miss and you love your daughter and would have done anything to still be with her, but
yeah,
you have this attitude of I can't change it, and I'd love to just hear your story there.
I appreciate you asking, Aaron. And anytime I have an opportunity to talk about Mackenzie, a lot of people shy away from talking about that with me, and what they don't realize is anytime I get to talk about her, it's a joy and an honor for me, even if sometimes it's hard. Telling stories about her, I love doing that. Mackenzie was born into the world with two conditions we knew of at the time. She had a heart condition called tetralogy of Fallot, and she had an abdominal condition called omphalocele, where some of her organs were on the outside of her stomach when she was born. Complicated little girl, but also just absolutely beautiful. And we got to see later in her life her personality come out, and she was so sweet, playful, actually very musical too. She loved music, and she had a little foot piano that she would kick and make melodies. And that being said, over the course of 9 months, she fought for her life every single day. Evelyn and I probably saw her suffocate nearly to death about, I don't think I'd be exaggerating if I said 50 times. And that's really hard to watch someone go through. And she fought it like a champ. She really did. Towards the 8 months into the hospital, she accelerated so fast after we discovered her airway problems, and she got a trach. She started to breathe really well, and that's when she started to play, and we started to smile, laugh. And we were told by the hospital, you need to start setting up at home because she's going to be out of here next month. We scrambled, tried to pull everything together at home, bought a crib for the first time, stroller, high chair, all the things, and starting to imagine what it was going to actually be like at home. Interviewed home healthcare nurses. And the week she was supposed to come home, she went into septic shock. And for those who don't have a medical background, and I didn't know any of these terms before Mackenzie, it's an infection in your bloodstream, and it's extremely serious. And for the next several weeks, she didn't recover, and she spiraled, and eventually passed. That going through that was it was brutal. It was war every single day. That was the level of, I don't know what else to compare it to, the level of intensity, emotional, physical intensity, the stakes every single day as we're going into the hospital. On top of that, when COVID hit, our visitors list got pulled, and we couldn't have any visitors, which is really our reinforcements to take a break. And then Evelyn and I were not allowed to be there on the same days. So really what it meant is three of us couldn't be together. And if I was with Evelyn, Mackenzie was alone. If I was with Mackenzie, then Evelyn was alone. That was just the dynamic. Trying to run a company through all of that really pushed me to my limit, and that was extremely difficult, and helped me to learn a lot of things about being a leader, about life, and I'd say one of the lessons you asked me about lessons. I'd say one is I think people are generally, and when I say people, myself included, people like to live in either pure joy, happiness, and comfort, or they like to live in darkness, depression, sadness.
Yeah.
And people don't like to hold both of those things together at the same time. And never in my life more have I felt both things simultaneously. And for the first time, I've had to get comfortable with that, to talk about my little girl and have that be such a happy way I get to remember and honor her, and yet it's hard at the same time. That is something that I've had to grow in, and I've had to be able to do more and more.
Yeah.
I think a lesson on the couple front, and I have to mention this because there might be other couples out there who are going through something similar. Going through this just about wrecked my marriage with Evelyn. And I didn't know if we were going to make it out of this. Statistics are not good for people with who lose children. And we had to get some counseling and really work for our marriage. Mm-hmm. We are in a much better place. It's not a field of flowers right now, but we're not in the red anymore. I'd say we're out of that red zone and really working through some things. And I'm very proud of my wife and what we've been able to rebuild since Mackenzie left us.
That's great. I mean, I couldn't imagine that situation. It's extremely difficult and a hard thing to go through, I'm sure. But having the support of your wife and being able to rebuild that relationship is so important. And I wish you didn't have to go through that, but you can't change the past, and you can only look forward at this point.
Yeah, and that's what we have to remind ourselves. We have so many regrets, mm-hmm. and things we wished we did differently, the hospital did differently. And it's okay to look back and learn from those things, but those are not choices we have in front of us anymore. Yeah. And we have to look at the choices we do have, which is, okay, what do we do from here? What do we do with the memory of Mackenzie? And one of the things we decided was we need to talk about her, and we need to talk to other parents out there who might have sick kids or even lost children, because we've been helped most as other parents and families have spoken with us. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I'm even on here and open to talking about her, is because that is the choice we have to help other people the way we've been helped and the way we still need help as we're going through this.
Yeah, no, that's powerful and such an amazing thing how you're using that story, as difficult it is and as hard as it is, to share it with other parents, other people who are going through something similar.
And Aaron, you understand this well. I mean, I'm talking about this, but here I'm talking to the guy who has a podcast named Blind Ambition, right? And talk about embracing the choice you have before you, not feeling sorry for yourself, but making the most of it. You are a shining example of that to so many people.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's the same thing for everyone in every situation. It doesn't matter what your, obstacles, your challenges, your, dilemma is. It's how you respond to that, how you perceive your situation. You can't allow your situation to define you. You need to define your situation. You can't look back on the past and say, well, I hate myself for not doing this, this, and this. You can only say, this is what happened. This is what I learned from it. Yeah. This is what I'm going to do differently in the future. Yeah. And, I think that's important. What advice would you give, for, someone in that situation? I think that you've gone through a very unique situation, a very unique challenge and obstacle, someone who's in a similar boat as you. What would you give advice to a parent maybe who is going through something similar right now and is in the thick of it and lost and scared and worried?
Yeah. So many things. One, I'd say you've got to take care of yourself and be healthy. I'll share one story when I was in the hospital and trying to run a company, dealing with COVID and fighting for my daughter's life. I began to believe the lie that I just didn't have the energy to stay healthy during that season of my life. And I knew it was a lie. I thought that's exactly why I need to be healthy, so that I'll have energy to do all the things I needed to.
Yep.
And so I installed a pull-up bar in her hospital room. And I would try to do 100 pull-ups a day when I was there. If Mackenzie takes a nap, real quick, right? 15 seconds, I want to crank out a set. Found a juice bar that was in the hospital, and I would regularly go and get my daily nutrients. And then, I also, on really tough days, Aaron, I would have been embarrassed to admit this before, but I would take sleep meds because I knew the trauma of that day. Well, I was not going to be able to sleep, but I needed to get back up and fight the next day. So if you're going through something like this, you have to fight to stay healthy, because the best thing you have to offer your sick child or loved one is a healthy self. And sometimes you feel like I need to beat myself up alongside them, but it's hard enough, and you don't need to make it harder by being the worst version of yourself, both for you and that person. So to the extent that you can, obviously, as you're going through something tough, there are some real limitations, but to the extent that you can, stay healthy so that you can give your best for that person.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an amazing message. And, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come on today and sharing this story. Where can people find you online? If someone has a question or just wants to connect with you, where can people find you and learn more about you and everything that's going on?
So you can find our company at evercleancw.com or any of the social media /evercleancw. And then you can also find me, just Thomas Kim, on social media. If you look me up, there are a lot of us in the world, but Thomas Kim, Everclean, I'll pop right up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Again, I really do appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Appreciate you.
This is Aaron Golub, host of the Blind Ambition podcast.